They might have found someone who would slot better into their top six than the incumbents.
The first time in 33 years that every Australian batsman has reached double digits.
Showed an example that really should put some of the more senior players to shame. It's certainly an ominous sign for England that Australia will get better, you think, over the course of this series.
They might be at the back engraving his name on the Player of the Series award. Well, it might have taken a little bit longer than what some fans could have expected today, but the result has ended up the same. Australia 8-wicket winners here at the Gabba, and now they have a 2-0 series lead, which history says is very, very, very hard to overcome. Sam Jordan here from 9 News, joined by Dan Brettig from The Age to talk about everything that we have seen here today and the rest. And it has felt like we did see a lot here today for a date where, in terms of scoreboard movement, not a lot happened. It turned into quite the entertaining day by the end.
Well, it was the most authentic day of Test cricket, really, that we've had all series. It was a pretty good day here on day one, to be fair. Joe Root making that terrific 100. But yeah, this was real cut and thrust of Australia bowling really high-quality Test match stuff, keeping the scoreboard tight, and England batting time as Australia had done the day before. And yeah, it was fascinating, and it was nice in a way to have some Test match time where there's a partnership forming and you get a bit of time to think about what's gone before. And as far as England are concerned, that's time to ruminate on, well, why didn't you bat properly like this before? Why didn't you soak up some time at tough moments in the game to ensure that when you got a partnership together, you could then start to accelerate again and get to a more dominant position in a game. They had the opportunity to do that in the second innings in Perth, didn't do it. Had the opportunity to do that at times, I think, on the first day of this Test match and didn't do it. They could have got a much bigger score than 334. And then, obviously, they also had an opportunity to get into today with fewer wickets down than 6, which also they couldn't do. So it was good to see England showing the fight that they did, and Ben Stokes said after the game that he had really emphasised that term fight to his players before this day's play. But it was also too little too late. Australia knew that just one wicket was going to open things up for them, and that's exactly how it played out, and they won before the rain started.
It feels like an extraordinary thing to say that the storyline of the day in an Australian victory was the way that England played. And the way that they adapted and changed their style with success is what we saw from Will Jackson and Ben Stokes. There was one of two thoughts, I think, from a lot of people coming into the stadium today, was that it was either going to be over very, very quickly, or we were going to see the kind of fire that England have said at times throughout this campaign already that they would show. And today they did show. It was brave batting.
It was terrific, and it certainly, it demonstrated that Ben Stokes has lost none of his ability as a batting technician when he chooses to use it. He's got a Test match average of 35, but he's a much, much better player than that, particularly in big moments. But the more telling, I think, information for as far as the rest of the series is concerned, is Will Jacks. He was a selection based on, we think we're going to need to lengthen our batting order and potentially have a spin bowler for the pink ball, depending on how the game goes. He bowled well when he got the opportunity, but he also batted well in both innings. And particularly today, that was genuine Test match quality batting by him, in contrast to a lot of the other members of the England top 7. And so that really, I think, asks us a question about, well, should Will Jacks bat higher in the order for the remainder of the series? Should he perhaps bat in place of Ollie Pope, who has really struggled to calm the farm as a number 3 batter should? So England didn't get a win out of the batting that they displayed today, but they might have found someone who would slot better into their top 6 than the incumbents.
It sounds like an absurd suggestion to make in a way, but I heard a few people say today that, maybe Jacks is the man that they can look to open the batting. We've seen him bat in that top 4 quite a lot throughout his first-class career, but also his white ball career as well. And given the way that he defended today and the way that he valued his wicket, he wouldn't look out of place at least at the top end of England's batting order.
Yeah, that's true. And I think the other thing that he did was he just showed an example that really should put some of the more senior players to shame. You think about someone like Harry Brook, he's got so much talent. He's got so much ability to destroy an attack. But it's Test match cricket. You've got to be able to absorb some pressure. And that's another thing Ben Stokes said tonight. He was happy to admit that England are much better at imposing pressure on an opposition than they are at absorbing it, even though they talk about the fact that as a test team, they've got to be able to do both. And they really need to have a bit of a chat to a number of their batsmen in particular, and the main one really is Harry Brook. He's the vice captain now, after all. Your job is to take a line from football is to be a box-to-box midfielder. You've got to defend and attack, and that's something that Harry Brook has not done sufficiently in this series. And equally, as I mentioned Ollie Pope before, I think there's an issue there that they've got to redress before Adelaide Oval.
That's right, and we will address them in just a moment. Let's chat about Australia for a second. Seems like an incredible thing to say, doesn't it? Australia, as I mentioned, taking a 2-0 series lead in what was one of the great all-round team efforts. And the numbers show that as well. Dan, we were talking about the stats last night. First time in 33 years that every Australian batsman has reached double digits in that dig for the Aussies there, that first innings, for their first innings as well. It was a really impressive effort that actually makes you forget that they were without Pat Cummins, they're without Josh Hazlewood in his test match, they were without Nathan Lyon as well. It was extraordinary. Yeah,
it was. And the Australian team to be 2-0 up with all of those players missing and with some of them to come back. It's certainly an ominous sign for England that Australia will get better, you think, over the course of this series. And it's also a vindication, I think, of the Australian system in terms of the fact that this is a team that is starting to get into a transition period. You know, there are ageing players there. Usman Khawaja obviously didn't play this game because of his back injury, but you wouldn't think that he's going to be around any longer than this series. You've got Travis Head moving up a position. You've got Jake Weatherall coming in. You've got Pat Cummins missing with a back injury. You've got Josh Hazlewood now in doubt for probably the remainder of the series, given that he's now battling with a couple of injury issues. And you've got Nathan Lyon, who they left out on a tactical basis, and that caused a fair bit of a stir in and around the Australian team that Nathan Lyon had been left out. But Michael Neser, a 35-year-old journeyman, veteran in Queensland in particular, has only ever played pink ball test cricket for Australia, never played a red ball test. And he came through in conditions that arguably there was less in it for the bowlers than you would get in a red ball match. The fact that the pink ball had gone soft, but him, Scott Boland in particular, I think, those two together, with a bit of help, I think, also from Brendan Doggett bowling short ball spells, they didn't give England anything. And one of the things that the Australians were feeling confident about in themselves today was that when they got to the first break, they're like, well, we haven't got a wicket, but England haven't gotten away from us.
Yeah.
And even if they're still batting when the lights come on and the pink ball comes out and we get a new ball, we're still able to get these wickets quickly, even if they're batting until then. So we haven't let them get away from us. We haven't tried too hard for wickets. And, you know, eventually, by doing that for long enough, the wickets did come. And you had Michael Neser getting both the big wickets in consecutive overs, starting with Steve Smith's unbelievable catch.
And to think it was almost outdone just overs later as well. It was unbelievable from Alex Carey. It's hard to know where to start talking about this Australian performance. Might stick with Neser for a moment because, it was amazing to see a player take their moment, seize their opportunity in front of their home adoring crowd as well. There was a fair few build the man a statue calls getting called out across this Gabba stadium too when he did take that fifth wicket as well. And it was the kind of performance that puts genuine pressure on selection around Michael Neser heading into the Adelaide Test as well, because although it has felt like we haven't had much cricket yet in this Ashes series, we are going to get a lot of cricket. The third, fourth and fifth tests are quite close together. It's going to be a very grueling, a very taxing turnaround for players on both sides, and there will need to be some management of the players throughout that time, and Michael Neser has shown that he's ready to answer the call.
Yeah, he was terrific in this test match, and just someone who's a really terrific role player in Australian cricket, whether it's for Queensland, whether it's in the Big Bash, played for Adelaide, played for Brisbane, whether he has provided some ballast on a tour when they haven't had injuries and they've had their front line quicks up and going throughout, but he's always been there as a backup option that they're confident in. This was his opportunity to take a game by the scruff of the neck, really, and the level of consistency, the level of rigour to his bowling, similar to someone like Scott Boland, it draws quite a contrast with the way that England have bowled in this series, and the fact that they had one innings, first innings in Perth, where they looked like they might be able to be up to that standard, but they just haven't been able to maintain it. And Australia have maintained it despite changes to their bowling attack, despite changes to conditions, and despite the fact that there's been no Pat Cummins there in particular. So, yeah, certainly Michael Neser can drink a beer or two very happily tonight.
And I'm sure he will as well. You did mention Pat Cummins there. We know that Pat Cummins is going to be back. I do say back, fit and available for selection in Adelaide, of course. Nathan Lyon has already been now given the public assurance by George Bailey that he will be back in Adelaide. So the bowling attack has plenty of options. I guess the big selection question that there is going to be plenty of debate around moving forward, just like there was coming into this second test match too, is how Usman Khawaja fits into this team. He has been having a hit throughout this test match as well in the nets out the back. You would have to say, given the way that he's progressing, will be available for selection. And let's assume that he will be available for selection for just a moment. That's a really tricky one for the selectors, because Dan, is there any way back from this point now? We've had a little look. It's only been a small look, but we have had a look at Jake Weatherald and Travis Head as an opening partnership. And there seems to be a level of comfort and a level of familiarity, and also a level of success now as an opening partnership for them that is going to make it hard for the selectors to go back on.
Yeah, I think the balance between Jake Weatherald and Travis Head has clearly been pretty good so far.
Yeah.
Jake Weatherald is a proactive opener, as we all knew before he made his debut, but he is a specialist opener. There are certain things he will do, certain things he won't do. He was extremely good in terms of judging length and leaving the ball early on in both his innings, in fact, in this test match. And that's real, opening batsman craft that is respected by his peers. Whereas Travis Head, I think, to me, still looked a little bit like a makeshift opener in this game. I don't think he quite looked like he's a long-termer there just yet. So I still see a scenario where Usman Khawaja comes back into the team if he's fit. And then once he does, then they make a decision about the batting order. The other thing I'd say is that Josh Inglis, interestingly enough, played in this game, took off an amazing run out to get Ben Stokes on the first day. We forget that easily. But he also batted 7, which I found a really interesting call in terms of the signal that sends that, we're going to have you in the side, but you're not going to be batting above Alex Carey. And, so that also suggests to me that there's still a little bit of a window there for Usman Khawaja to come back, because he's obviously someone who is considered genuinely capable of batting anywhere in the top 6. He's made test hundreds at number 5. He batted at 3 in his first iteration in his test career, and more recently he's been an opener. So, I don't think the door's closed on Khawaja playing in the remainder of the series.
We've mentioned Alex Carey a few times. I do want to chat about his wicket keeping, right? Absolutely extraordinary. But how far are we into this now? It could be more than 10 minutes. We haven't even said Mitchell Starc's name. And that just feels wrong given what we have seen here again. I know we're only 2 tests in, but they might be at the back engraving his name on the Player of the Series award. It is just extraordinary what he has achieved, and I don't think we can go a minute further, because he's done it with the bat, he's done it with the ball, and I think I'm almost out of words. I know we've been speaking about him every day now that we've done these digital videos, but it has been phenomenal.
Yeah,
it's stepping up when the rest of the big 3 weren't by his side.
He's having his Mitchell Johnson series. He's having his Mitchell Johnson 2013-14 series, and that's terrific to see. And he's not doing it just with brute force. He's actually doing it with a combination of the pace and the hostility that Mitchell Johnson showed in 2013-14, but he's also doing it with a bit of the skill and the presence of mind and the array of abilities to bowl different things in different spells that Ryan Harris showed bowling opposite Mitchell Johnson. You've almost got an all-out fast bowler and a highly skilled operator in one package, and that is unbelievably impressive. And then that's all without mentioning his batting in this Test match, where he played again. We talked about Will Jacks. Mitchell Starc played a proper Test match innings yesterday, absorbing pressure, counter-attacking when the shots were on, but primarily batting time, knowing that the longer that he batted, the worse things were going to be for England, and the better for him with that pink ball. So It's incredible to think he's been player of the match in both the two tests so far. He's clearly a bit sore and a bit weary after that game, batting and bowling for a long time in the heat. But you just know that he'll be up for playing again in Adelaide.
As he always is. You mentioned Mitchell Johnson there. Stat without notice that I think I did hear at some point over the last few days. First Aussie since Mitchell Johnson to claim a fifer and a 50 in the same test match. Does that sound about right to you? I think I saw it online. I like the sounds of it.
Yeah, well, Starc has also done that previously in his career, but he'd only done it in I think it was in 2012 against South Africa.
Right,
that was a test match that Australia lost. So it's a pretty small club of players who've done it. Starc as an all-round cricketer of great skill, great determination, great stubbornnness. Sometimes, as he's admitted, that stubbornness hasn't always helped him. But he's left a huge mark on this series. And as I wrote yesterday, England must, by this stage, be thoroughly sick of the sight of him.
Absolutely. Alex Carey. I'm about to say the biggest cliche, the most overused line about Alex Carey, but would you believe he used to be an Aussie Rules player? Now, the reason I want to note that is because there is a culture in, ball sports here in Australia about hard work, and that you don't have to be maybe the most gifted talent in the sport, but if you work hard, you'll make your way to the top. Alex Carey has just continued to work and work and work, and this performance, especially with the gloves out in the middle for his country, it feels like he's raised the bar again. Has his keeping gotten better? Because it is extraordinary. The way that he was able to keep up at the stumps across his test match was unbelievable, and I'm so glad to see him getting the praise that he deserves for something that he has worked tirelessly at over these past few years as well.
Yeah, if you think back 4 years to his debut in the last Ashes series in Australia, he looked like he had the goods, but he would still drop a chance here or there. There was a little bit of discussion about technically maybe he's not doing the right thing with his weight transfer, all that kind of thing. But you fast forward 4 years of him playing Test cricket for Australia, and he is putting on a masterclass. And it actually reminds me of what happened with Ian Healy when he was the Australian wicketkeeper. He started in 1988. He had a tough series away in Pakistan where they were very tough conditions for a wicketkeeper, and Australia lost that series. But he was persisted with, he added to his craft, and of course the thing that we remember most about Ian Healy is his work up to the stumps to Shane Warne. And Alex Carey's level of skill up to the stumps, which Steve Smith spoke about tonight, the fact that with guys like Scott Bowl and Michael Neser bowling close to 140 k's an hour, and he's keeping to them so cleanly, taking catches like the one he did today to get Ben Stokes. It's really out of the top drawer, and I think I've already said to you this week, there's really no contest between the wicketkeepers so far.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Ian Healy actually was speaking about it today on FCN Radio, and spoke about the things that I'm never going to notice, the posture differences, the balance differences, the way that he's transferring his weight. And he said that is an evolution in Carey's keeping, and it's nice to see him also just get that poster moment in terms of the catch that he did claim. It was just unbelievable off Ben Stokes. We're going to be seeing that replay for a very, very long time. As we are sitting here at a now empty Gabba, empty cups and cans swirling around, we are now finished here and looking towards Adelaide. Dan, the Ashes series does feel like it's had a little bit of wind taken out of it, given what we've seen from England in these first two test matches. Is there any way back? History says no. But we almost saw England do it 2 years ago, in what would have been the first time since 1936-37 a side has come back from 2-0 down to win an Ashes series. Maybe not win the series, but do you think they can fire a shot and perhaps even win a test match here this summer?
I don't think it's beyond England to win a test match. But I would also say that so many members of this current Australian team were in England in 2023. They still feel like they let England off the hook in that series by making too many mistakes themselves, by not grabbing momentum when they had it, not taking advantage of match-winning positions when they had it, particularly the third test at Leeds. I know has given nightmares to a number of those Australian players about the fact that they had England on toast and didn't take advantage. I think the fact that they're playing at home, I think the fact that they're now going to Adelaide, which is a venue that all those players love playing at, and also the fact that they're getting back to a red ball game with probably Pat Cummins as the captain again.
Yeah.
I think you'd have to be an enormous optimist to think that England are going to do anything other than go 3-0 down. And yeah, they may well win a test match before we get to the end of the series, but it kind of reminds me maybe of some of those series in the 90s where England would lose the Ashes after 2-3 test matches and might nick one towards the end they won a famous test match in Melbourne, they won a famous test match in Sydney when Steve Waugh made that 100, they won a famous test match in Adelaide when Mike Gadding got 100 and Devon Malcolm took a bunch of wickets. But those all happened after the Ashes were decided, and I feel like that's kind of the scenario we're looking to here.
Well, they're going to be fresh when they do arrive in Adelaide. I don't want to add to the pylon that is undoubtedly happening and growing louder and louder overnight as well. But Brendan McCullum did say after the game as well that he thought, as we can hear the empty cans of the Gabba crowd, this is what day night cricket's all about, swirling around the stadium. Brendan McCullum did say that he thought England were guilty of over-preparing for this test match. It is the kind of comment and the kind of headline that he's going to get a lot of interaction from supporters, particularly English supporters as well, not just the Australian ones that are looking to rub salt to the wound as well. As I pause there for a dramatically long time, Dan, is there going to be pressure on his job? Not perhaps right at this very moment, but at some point in this Ashes series?
Well, one thing to say about these first two tests is they were all watched by Richard Gould, the CEO of the England and Wales Cricket Board. He is due to fly home after this test match, and for Richard Thompson, the chair of the ECB, to come out to do the relay, I suppose, of being the ranking official for England on the tour. And yeah, they've got some thinking to do and some decisions to make after this series about whether they think that Brendan McCullum is still the right coach. It was interesting, though, in the, some minutes after McCullum said those words about over-preparing, that Ben Stokes was moved to clarify that and to say that he believes in training to dominate, not training to train. It was a little bit of a overly philosophical section of his press conference, but what was clear there was that he was trying to make the point that he and Brendan had made that as a joint decision, and that they they're still working together. They've still got a clear philosophy, and I don't think any of the England players at this stage would necessarily want to see the back of Brendan McCullum, so that'll be a factor in it. But obviously, if England end up losing this series by a similar or even a worse margin than they did in 21-22 when it was a completely different setup, well, that's obviously going to beg the question, well, we went to one extreme 4 years ago, we've gone to the other extreme in terms of player preparation this time. Maybe there's a happy medium. Maybe there's a way of playing more confidently but also playing smarter, and maybe that needs a new coach.
It's a big story, and it's something we're going to be speaking about more between now and the Adelaide Test match for the Aussies. Well, there's still a whole selection conversation to be had before the third Test match of this Ashes series, and that is where we'll see you next. For daily updates on this summer of cricket, you can check out 9 News, and for more in-depth analysis as well as the latest, you can see The Age and the Sydney Morning Herald. I'm Sam Jordan, that's Dan Brady. Thanks very much for your time, and thank you for tuning in. We'll see you in Adelaide.